HARK, we are here. It is time for yet another episode of Star Wars Unlimited. We've already gone through aggression. We've already gone through cunning. Let's just jump right into command. Today, we're going to be going over the top cards of command and the cards with a lot of potential for command decks. So per usual, we're going through command villainy first, then command heroism, then just command agnostic, and it should be fun. So let's get right on to it. Command villainy is interesting in that most of the best choices in the section are the obvious choices. We're going to be looking at things like Seasoned Shore Trooper, Super Laser Technician, Darth Vader commanding the First Legion, and Overwhelming Barrage. Obviously, Seasoned Shore Trooper is a good early and mid-game unit. It's not going to be able to take things out at the same speed or at the same turn counter when you play it, but when you do get to that 6 or more resources, which is really easy for command villainy, it becomes a 4/3 and is much more difficult to, not necessarily to defeat because it still only has 3 health, but is more deadly on the opposite end. Super Laser Technician, super easy. Basically, do 2 damage to something or kill something if it has 2 damage or less, or use another effect on it in order to be able to defeat it, and you get it as a readied resource. Darth Vader, big beefy 7 cost 5/7 unit with ambush that also searches the top 10 cards of your deck for villainy cards with combined cost of 3 or less. It's a force multiplier here. You can drop a bunch of 1/1s, you can drop a 2 and a 1, you can drop a 3. Anything that you need that's available to you that's in those top cards, you're pretty much going to get it, especially if you build your deck with a lot of these Shore Troopers and Super Laser Technicians. And then Overwhelming Barrage, one of the first cards we saw, one of the strongest cards we've seen. Nothing has changed about that. 5 costs, give a unit 2/2, and then deal damage equal to its power divided among any units that you want. Your opponent's, yours. You could use a ping of your own damage to be able to knock out a Super Laser Technician, or mostly just blow up your opponent's forces. And those are 4 really good cards for command villainy. In terms of cards with potential, Admiral Piet and General Tag, I think, are 2 of the best officer units that do different things for different decks. If you are trying to go into the late game with heavy vehicles, you have the ability of Admiral Piet giving them ambush that allows, as long as it costs 6 or more, it allows them to do extra things instead of just whatever they do, wait to be able to activate again on the next round and do things. And then General Tag, if you are playing lots of troopers, which you can with the various combinations that command villainy fits into, you get extra experience tokens on those troopers. But even still, 2 cost 2/2, not great, but not terrible at the same time. Gladiator Star Destroyer, giving you one of your units Sentinel for a phase. That ability is very undervalued right now, and this probably should be run at least as a 1 of in most command villainy decks, if not more. Rook, being able to damage it when it damages an enemy unit on attack, defeat that unit no matter how much health it is. Super valuable play, especially if you all are very high into Energy Conversion Lab. You ECL this guy out, attack into something, it dies, you don't take any damage because you're shielded, and you have lots of cool opportunities for Rook to be able to be useful. Going further into the late game, you do have access to things like Relentless and Devastator. Devastator, I think, is the better Star Destroyer because it simply is a 10 cost 10/10 with Sentinel Overwhelm, and you deal damage equal to the number of resources you control to a unit on the board. So this thing is taking something out with its when played, and if you have Piet on the board, it can take another space unit out pretty much no matter what it is and overwhelm into the opponent's base. I think there is a very strong strategy available for something like Grand Moff Tarkin having access to Admiral Piet, Super Laser Technician, and resupplies to be able to get to that 10 cost as quickly as possible on the round before, playing Admiral Piet in a protected way so that way your opponent can't react to it, take the initiative, and then dropping Devastator at the very first moment the next round to be able to ambush, clear out a space unit, clear out any other unit, deal that extra damage to Overwhelm, and now you have a 10, however much health is remaining on the board at the end of that specific action with Sentinel that is difficult to deal with. So those are the cards for command villainy. Similar to command villainy, command heroism has several choices that are very obvious as to whether or not they are good. Those options are Battlefield Marine, Echo-Based Defender, Bright Hope, Rebel Assault, and U-Wing Reinforcement. Battlefield Marine and Echo-Based Defender are a nice 1-2 punch. Round 1, you play the Marine. Round 2, you play Echo-Based Defender, giving you a solid grip of Rebel units that are on the ground. Your Battlefield Marine being a 2-cost 3/3, your Echo-Based Defender being a 3-cost 4/3 with Sentinel, that it Battlefield Marine doesn't require an immediate answer, but Echo-based Defender does. But Battlefield Marine's 3 damage can rack up or just be used to control your opponent's units on the board by clearing out most things that do have 3 health. A lot of people have switched over to using 2 cost units that have at least 3 attack to be able to clear off other units on the board that have 3 health. And you can see right here, right off the bat, the Battlefield Marine, the Lens Dispatcher, Bail Organa, Mon Mothma, Echo-based Defender, all 3 health. So that is something that is going to be relevant, especially in mirrors against Command Heroism. Echo-based Defender, Sentinel. That's all you need to say. Sentinel, 4 power. Very few things are going to survive from from resource cost 4 and down attacking into this thing unless it has a shield or can shoot first effectively. Bright Hope, couple of things here. 4 cost is about average for space units you're going to be including in your deck unless you're running a lot of low to the ground things like the Alliance X-Wing or TIE Line Fighter or your wing leader. But a 4 cost Bright Hope, 2/6 only. But with Sentinel, it means that your opponent's going to be jamming units into it for a while because it does have that 6 health. And then being able to return a friendly non-leader ground unit to the owner's hand. If you do, you get to draw a card into Bright Hope as well, which allows you to reuse your when played effects. You want to reuse Mon Mothma to be able to get another Rebel? Bright Hope. You want to be able to reuse Admiral Akbar to do more damage to a single unit in an arena? Bright Hope comes down. Rebel Assault, one of the best command events in the game, if you're running Rebels especially, because for 1 cost, you attack with a Rebel, it gets +1 power. You attack with another Rebel, it gets +1 power. For those Leia decks where you can lead that combination of attack with your first thing, attack with Leia, and then Leia allows you to attack with another Rebel if you have 3 open Rebels to be able to do that. That is an incredibly powerful and incredibly compelling first action of a round to be able to put a large amount of damage onto your opponent's base. U-Wing Reinforcement, it's a grab bag, it's a gamble, but for 7 cost and what you can get out of it, it is huge. Because there's no restriction like there is for Vader. All it is 3 units with combined cost of 7 or less and play each of them for free. It doesn't need to be heroism units. It doesn't need to be command units. It just needs to be units. So there's a lot of different strategies that are going out there that utilizes something like U-Wing Reinforcement to be able to just drop a bunch of units on the board and change the scope of what your opponents are doing. In terms of potentials, this is where command heroism, I think, fails a little bit. Mon Mothma and Admiral Akbar, I think, are the 2 top potential cards, but they're easily left at home when you have other things in your other aspects that can cover the spots that are being used by Mon Mothma and Admiral Akbar. I do use Mon Mothma in some of my Rebel decks because being able to filter out a Rebel and still have a unit on the board round 1 is actually very good, especially if you don't pull any of those Battlefield Marines. And getting the options of being able to just poke at other units without taking too much damage back or poke at your opponent's base, Mon Mothma does do work. Admiral Akbar, I think his one play is really cool, but it requires you to have a very wide spread of units, which means you're not really going to be playing him on round 2 with your 3 resources because you just don't have that berth. Admiral Akbar is kind of like a noob trap card where you think he's going to be really powerful, but he's only really powerful in specific situations. So you have to analyze your board state and your opponent's board state to decide whether or not he is a good card to play. And that is command heroism. And here we are with command agnostic. I like the double command cards. I don't think that double command as a deck is viable right now. Hopefully set 2 brings more things that makes just double command itself a decent play to make. The main problem with double command is that there is virtually no removal. There's 1 card that can do it singularly unless you're playing something like command villainy, which does have overwhelming barrage, which is very good. But in terms of cards that are just command with no other morality aspect to them, Strike True is the only one that does it, and it still requires a unit on the board. But in terms of the single command units, Agent Callus is very good. One of the things you'll note is that a lot of the really good command cards are either have a trigger for ambush like Escort Skip or natively have ambush on top of them. Adding in ECL, you could use things like Consortium Star Viper or Steadfast Battalion to be able to push through that extra damage, especially if you have initiative on this one to get the restore too. But natively ambushed Agent Callus and Mercenary Company, I think, are 2 of the best cards you're going to be seeing in command agnostic because of the extra things that they bring. Mercenary Company has that ambush with Overwhelm attached. Agent Callus has ambush with card draw attached if you defeat a another unique unit. Resupply, ramp. Ramp is almost always good. Strike true, a friendly unit deals damage equal to its power to an enemy unit. 3 cost, you have to have a unit on the board in order to be able to use this, very similar to Karabast, but the power of command units can generally get up pretty high. If you have a reinforcement walker or a 97th Legion or even just something basic, I mean Krell even on the board, that can at least help you get to the point of defeating an opposing unit or defeat a unit outright, depending on how much health remaining that unit has. Command agnostic is supposed to be the support for your other things, but you're leaning very heavily into the morality aspect of whatever command card you're going to be using compared to other things like aggression and cunning and vigilance, which have a lot of strong cards natively on their own that don't have a morality aspect tied to it. In terms of cards with potential, Frontline Shuttle, it is a nice little surprise. You pay 2, action defeat, you basically get a attack another unit effect, a pseudo ambush. 97th Legion, I think, is actually just a very fun card, because if you can bust this out for 7, you're going to have a 7/7 on the board, and every time you place a resource, you're going to be getting more, and because command wants to ramp, you ramp. I'm going to get crucified if I don't mention Traitorous. I still don't like it. I still don't think it's a good card. I think the pie in the sky situation for Traitorous means that it can be very good, but if anybody is even remotely aware of Traitorous, they're never going to let you have that situation where Traitorous is worth doing. And I've seen people lose to trying to Traitorous something because they didn't see the removal coming back, or the fact that that wasn't the play that allowed the opponent to win the game, so on and so forth. I can only trash Traitorous so much. And there we have it. Command reviewed. Lots of good cards in Command. I think that Command is a very good secondary aspect unless you're playing a leader like Tarkin or Leia, who can utilize a lot of the strategies in their morality section of Command to great effect. But we've seen it that Sabine went from cunning to command, and Boba went from cunning to command as strong decks. Iden has pretty much universally been vigilance command for her deck build in terms of what's out there on the internet, but there is a sneaky Iden aggression build that's floating around that I think is also very good and can compete for one of those top 3 slots. The meta is going to be shifting throughout the next month or so as people kind of get used to playing the game and figure out what's good, what's not. And that's kind of the purpose of these review series, to at least tell you what cards are good and what cards that I think need to be seen in more decks, unless these cards are bad and shouldn't be played. The only exception is obviously what we just talked about, which is Traitorous. That is my Star Wars Unlimited hill to die on. That's it. We have reviewed Command. Command is a fun aspect. It was actually one of the first ones that I really liked what was available to it until Cunning said, hey, here's all the events, which we've talked about before. But I think each aspect brings something fun to the table, whether it's through the direct morality aspect of what's coming through with heroism and villainy, or just what the style aspect as a whole brings to the table for its cards that are in set 1 Spark of Rebellion. So that's all we have for today. Remember to like and comment on the video, subscribe to this lovely YouTube channel for all your Star Wars Unlimited needs. Follow me on all my social media platforms at RybackStun, wherever you can find me. One more thing. Tomorrow, today is Wednesday as of the release of this video. Tomorrow, Thursday, we are going to start 2 new series. One on Thursday and one on Friday. I can't guarantee that they're going to be always on those days. In fact, I'm pretty much telling you right now that's not going to happen. It's just how I'm going to introduce them to you. They're going to be series called Action Phase and Regroup Phase. The design behind these is that, and you'll hear this in the next 2 videos multiple times, Action Phase is going to be the gameplay videos that will be featured on this Star Wars Unlimited channel, and Regroup Phase will be the conversational aspects, the deck builds, guides, whatever you want me to call what I do for deck reviews, and other things that are associated with that. So those will be the 2 things that you'll see. Down the line, we might see an unbox phase. Who knows? I have noticed that the well is kind of drying up for the first run of set 1 of Star Wars Unlimited, but I'm not worried because I have heard that they are going to be able to churn these things out pretty quickly. So Spark of Rebellion should be pretty much universally available for a while unless something drastically bad happens, which we're hoping is not going to be the case. So with that, look forward to the next 2 videos. Also, go rewatch some of my old videos. They've got some cool content in there. You can see the evolution of thought when it comes to Star Wars Unlimited. We'll be having 2 new playlists that will include those Action Phase and Regroup Phase videos, and the Star Wars Unlimited playlist that's on this channel will also remain the same. But I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did showcasing it to you all. I hope you enjoy the next 2 videos and all the other videos that are coming out. I am now talking too much, and I will say I will see you in the stars.